This is the Griffin Realty Group Ask a Griffin podcast, episode number 8. Which low to no cost fix-up projects should I complete? Are you a buyer, seller, or real estate agent who has questions about buying or selling residential property, but you can't find an easy way to get the answers? Well, then, hey, you're definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Griffin Realty Group and the host of the Ask a Griffin podcast. Now, to help you take immediate action to get started in the right direction, if you need to sell or buy property right now or in the near future, you can take advantage of our free step-by-step guides that are waiting for you over at griffincourses.com. That's Griffin courses.com. All right, let's get started with this. The question that we get a lot is, how do I know what improvements to make prior to selling? You know, these low to no cost projects. These are the keys, right? And this is a continuation of our series here. So first of all, let me deal with this. Why is completing projects to your benefit that concept in general? You see, when a buyer really, when you think about this curb appeal, right? They hit the front of the house. They do their drive-by. That's clearly how a lot of people will vet or make sure that the neighborhood is right for them. Do they feel safe? Do they like it? Do they look at the other houses and they feel the vibe and they feel the value? They're going to do that, certainly. Certainly now we have this whole online piece. But ultimately, people are going to come through the front door. And immediately, their perceptions kick in. They have a perception of value that we're dealing with here. And so the answer is absolutely, of course. Anytime you go to sell a property, you can benefit by raising the value from even the lowest to no cost projects. And I mean no cost because I mean you can do them yourself. So let me get into this, right? What that means, and I'll get into some more specifics about cleaning, etc. But what if you don't pick the right upgrades? That's one of the big fears people have because they don't even know where to start. I mean, a house, a condo, whatever you're selling is a big deal. And there's a lot that you just sort of come and go and you don't pay attention to until you have to. And I think the worst thing to do is not do anything and sit still and presume that all is going to be well. And that's why a lot of people freak out when they go to sell their houses. They get very nervous. Their anxiety goes through the roof. But I think by taking action, you cause that positive chemical drip in your brain to gain a sense of control. That you are indeed control of at least the perception of value here. So I wouldn't worry about the big upgrades first. Let's go to the small things. And certainly cleaning is one of them. But I think overall, when you walk into a home, if there's too much stuff, if you can't feel the flow of the property as if it were brand new, think about this. A lot of builders out there don't even furnish their properties when they present them. They present them brand new. The smartest do because people have difficulty spatially looking at a place and how it would flow for them. However, most of them still get away with selling an open property. So imagine your property with nothing in it, in this clean palette, and you start to look around. Well, what are the basics before the furniture ever got in there to distort your vision? Well, the painting. Now, for me, I'm no painter, so I'm more apt to go get somebody to do that for me, but it is the lower cost that I can spend to do a wall over that might be more neutral. See, if you ever think about fine dining, and if you've never seen this before, go Google it. There's a little bit of a sherbet or something that's given in between meals or courses to cleanse the palate. Well, that's what you're doing here. It's like you're bringing the easel back to a white sheet so that people can at least see the easel and the paper, and they bring their own paintbrush. They bring their own idea, but you have to bring it back to this neutral concept. So oftentimes a lot of whites or light colors, it just brightens it up. And that's another thing, the perceptive value of airiness and openness. I mean, I'm not saying that some people don't like dark, cave-like places, but I'm saying if you're going to cheat towards improving value, imagine it empty and begin to clean. You look down, I'm looking at the studio room that I'm doing this in, and I look at the walls and I say, well, that color on the top part of the wall is probably too dark. Maybe we could paint it lighter and open it up. We have white trim. Does that need to be touched up? See, those things are just super low cost and easy to do. I'm not talking about painting the entire house, but what if you went outside and you looked at the trim? and you could sand it down and just paint up the spots that you did. So you're beginning to see the basics, the core, that when all your furniture is moved out on moving day, how does it look? What's left behind? Well, why not start by looking at that right now and first, right? And a lot of people will ask us, well, what about all these other types of things that bathrooms and kitchens, aren't those the biggest value add? I saw something on the internet that said I could go get a great return on investment. Well, great. But now you're starting to get into things where it's more personal taste, and they're clearly not low to no cost items. Now, if you want to work your way up there, now, of course, you might be listening to this and you have zero intent of doing any of this yourself, no problem. But I would still start by cleansing the palate and dealing with bigger items that you've been deferring for a while, like bathrooms, kitchens. Those are clearly some of the biggest value adds. And if you're listening to this well in advance of considering doing this, well, you might want to consider those projects. They're not inexpensive, depending on what you do. But I'm going to go back to the same advice on any project. Stick with neutral. Don't get all creative. Look for the trends of the neutrality of what's selling in today's day and age. What are today's expectations, not yours? Get the advice of a good designer, kitchen designer, bathroom designer. Those are articles you can read online and see what the trends are. Stay with them and stay neutral. Don't get all weird and creative at this moment. You're trying to sell. Most people would be more than happy to see clean and new on anything to make them feel good and perceive that value. So the question really is, well, is that even worth it if they're low to no cost? You better believe it is. I mean, you better believe it is, because if people feel like the core of the property has been taken care of, even down if you have a basement, get down there and clean that place. You can paint the floor with the nice gray. You can dry lock the walls with white. You can put new bulbs in, by the way, everywhere. See where I'm going? Just see the place empty and see it as light, bright, and clean. That's a good idea or indicator of where you should start. And yes, that really adds a lot of value. Imagine a buyer walking through the house and it's dark and it's dingy and there are spider webs everywhere and the bulbs are all broken. Don't just blow that off. It's so easy to do. All right. Now, the last point here I want to cover is going beyond. Dealing with home inspection issues. Now, in a prior episode, I talked about doing a seller inspection. So now you have a full list, and you'll know clearly by looking at that what the low to no cost projects are that you could complete. You'll see what that looks like, or not, because the home inspector is not going to critique your paint. They're going to critique the hole in the wall perhaps, but not the paint. So you pull these two things together where you have the obvious core basics, paint, cleanliness, carpet, etc., all those types of things that need to be clean, smell clean, look clean, bright, light, between the lights themselves, lamps, etc. But the bigger issues now are on a piece of paper, and how do you deal with those, right? Now, we talk about this almost all the time. Get a contractor over to price these things out. Let's go back to bathrooms and kitchens. Price it out. Price it out with all the line items for the basics. And when you sit with your realtor and you go over how to price your property correctly, be realistic when you look at the comparable sales, or at least what the money bought. I'm not a fan of the word comparable because it's hard to do with property to property. I just believe that that's what the money bought. And would you buy that one with that brand new kitchen or yours with this at the same price if, relatively speaking, the rest was the same? You get the point. So you can price these things out, and that will help you make price adjustments against what the money's buying. All right, so let me go back and talk about this. Which low to no cost fix-up projects should you complete? The best way to start that is to think about, well, first of all, you should complete them. Be motivated to do this. Don't just blow me off on this, because they do add value. There's no doubt. But start with core. Start with paint. Start with carpet, if because that's a core, and neutral. Maybe in the kitchens and bathrooms, you could go into, if you're a do-it-yourself type, countertops, redo those as long as the boxes and the rest is fine. But really just think light and bright. What is going to bring the core back? And clearly, one thing I didn't mention here, get rid of everything that's not staying. I've said this many times in this seller series, get rid of what's not staying. It's time for the dumpster. It's time to stop the hoarding, which we all do. I'm not saying that as something that could really be a mental health issue that should be dealt with correctly. I'm saying just we all tend to accumulate things in a property and it needs to go. It's time. You're going to move anyway, and there's nothing worse than finding you have 30 to 45 days to move, or shorter like I did, 2 weeks. Get that dumpster now. Get out ahead of it, and that will let you see the core better, okay? And then remember that home inspection, that seller home inspection is a good thing to have, because then you'll see the big projects you can price out. All right. Here's how I'd summarize this. When it comes to a buyer assigning a value to your property, there's no doubt that any noticeable deferred maintenance will cause them to begin their price discount as they attempt to tally the costs of upgrades. The best way to begin to combat the discount mentality as a seller is to begin by completing all these low to no cost projects yourself, which will raise the perceptive value. All right, remember, you can take immediate action to get started in the right direction if you need to sell or buy property right now or in the very near future by getting our free step-by-step guides. They're waiting for you at griffincourses.com. Like I said, Griffin is Griffin courses.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen so that you don't miss out on any insights each time we upload one of these episodes. They're helpful for those of you thinking about buying or selling. We also post all the episodes on our social media channels, so remember, turn on your notifications for Griffin Realty Group and you won't miss the reminders. We'd also appreciate it if you would share our content with other people just like you so they get this kind of help that they need. Hey, thanks for listening. Remember, nobody's coming for you to prepare you to buy or sell. So go get to work on your own plan and keep your questions coming, and we'll handle them right here. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.